Welcome to Super Soul Sisters. My name is Jamila Oluka and you're watching UBC TV Inspiring Uganda. Super Soul Sisters runs every Wednesday at 9 p.m. and I repeat on Friday 11 a.m. and if you happen to miss, you can also catch us on YouTube, still Super Soul Sisters, to watch all our episodes that we run here on Super Soul Sisters. I would like to give credit to Footsteps Furniture for giving us such a beautiful place to share our stories of sisters here on UBC TV. When you want, if you want to beautify your home, you want good furniture, good lighting, good curtains, I mean everything that you need in a home, this is the place to come to. It's just right opposite the Bank of Africa along Ginger Road. There's enough parking. Even if you come with the 10 vehicles, there is enough parking and you'll get to see everything you want in this showroom. Right here today we have a very exceptional lady who will share with us her story. She's called Xavier. I'll leave her to introduce herself and then we dive into it. You're most welcome, Reverend.
Thank you.
You're most welcome, Madam Xavier.
Thank you.
You can introduce yourself and tell us who you are.
Thank you so much, Jamila. I am Tino Xavier Grace. By God's grace, priested in Anglican Church of Uganda. I was ordained in Kumi Diocese. I am a teacher by profession and married woman, a mother of 3. Currently, I'm a teacher at Gayaza High School.
Thank you very much for that brief introduction. Now, you know you have so many titles. You have Madame Xavier, you have Reverend, you have a teacher, you a mother.
Mrs.
So many titles. But I'll start, before you got these titles, I want you to take us back. Who is Madame Xavier before getting all these titles? Where were you born? Who are your parents? Tell us, take us through that journey.
Okay, I'm a born of Kumi, practically, but I was born in Soroti Hospital because my parents happened to have worked in Soroti at such a season when God gave them me. I'm a child of 2 primary school teachers. By God's grace, my father and mother both became school head teachers. I'm a born of 1977, April, and my childhood, I could say, was both interesting and turbulent. I've just told you I'm born of Teso, and as a child, while I was still enjoying what childhood had to bring, a full package of childhood, by P3, my mother gave birth to our last born. I'm the firstborn of my mother, but I'm from a polygamous family. My dad had 17 children. I am the 11th in the patriarchal line, but the firstborn of my mom. My mom was the second woman. And for us, we are 4. I'm the firstborn. And so, like I told you, my mom is a teacher. She's retired now. When she gave birth to our last born in 1986, she had no babysitter, and yet she was at school, she was training. So I had to give up school in P3 and P4 to take care of our last born so that mom finishes her course in PTC Bwalasi. And so when she finishes her course, they had a choice of making me either repeat P3 or go to P4 and repeat. I rebelled. I told them I was not about to repeat any class because I saw who I was. I was a gifted child. Right from my nursery and then primary, I used to lead the class. And
maybe you can take us back to nursery.
Nursery,
because
yes.
When you went to nursery,
yes, I was very lucky.
To primary. Some of the people born around 78, 80, 81 didn't really experience nursery life. So before you went to primary, how was being at home, a child? What were you like? Were you this child who was happy? Being a firstborn?
I was a very happy child. And like, we grew up in a complex. You know, those missionary schools, you'd have a church in one area, school in another, and a hospital. So by the time I started my nursery, we were in the current Ngora district, which was under Kumi then. And that place has a church, it has a number of schools, and nursing school, a PTC, and so we're lucky to have a nursery education, which was manned by the church. And so it was so good. You know, it would be so good to go to nursery school, and we were given very good, nutritious porridge.
Yes.
We would have porridge of oats and milk. We would have porridge of milk in maize flour. And it was so nice. And, you know, playing. Nursery school gives you an opportunity to play, to meet other children. And it was so interesting. And then from nursery, I were there for only 1 year. It's not like a current day nursery school where you spend 3 years. Yeah. So I actually went to P1 in '83 when I was less than 6 years. And I sailed through. I was good in class. And so when my parents now tell me in P3, P4 I should repeat one of the classes, I said no. Because I was with one of my stepsisters who was competing with me neck to neck. And so I was not seeing myself dropping a class behind and seeing my sister go to the next class. So it is not easy. I made a lot of noise and they allowed me go to P5. Now when we
that means you didn't study P4?
I did not. I didn't. P3, P4.
But how was the experience being at home for 1 year, taking care
of a baby?
For someone who is so much interested in education.
Of course, it was not nice. We found ourselves in the ladies' dormitory in Buala CPTC. I think we're 2 girls and then 2 boys. Incidentally, all of us were our mother's children. None was like a maid. Everyone, our mother had to surrender the child to take care. You know how people in Teso could be those days. You would not easily get a maid. You know, people would be like, who gives their child to be a maid, to be a slave of another person? So we were all our parents' children. We were 2 boys and 2 girls, and somehow we found ourselves have our own school. And I was the teacher. I always found myself teaching when the children, at that young age, when the children would sleep off, we would collect ourselves and try to learn. But of course, we were not guided so well. We had no books, and our mothers were so busy, absorbed with their own studies. And so I didn't, yes, but I went to P5. I found life very hard because I want to believe that for a child to have a very good backbone in primary education, they must have studied very well in P3 and P4. You know, those things of science, mathematics. So I found it hard to cope. But still, when I went to class, by God's grace, when we did exams, I was number 9. And so my parents just believed in me, and I continued with studies in that first term. Unfortunately, in around our second term, that was around May, we got into turmoil. The LRA, no, we didn't have LRA, we had UPA rebels, Uganda People's Army. We had the Karimojong Rustlers attack. We had the NRA, US small baby, probably, yes. There was NRA, and so we're in a turmoil, in a state of confusion. And so my P5 to P7 turned to be so.
You studied today, tomorrow you're not
studying. Those things. And then the bushes were safer than houses. It was bad. Sometimes we had our father beaten in our presence as children. You know, those days they would pay teachers through head teachers. The banking system was not that good, especially, I think, down there. So whenever my dad went for teachers' salaries, we would be sure of an attack somehow. So most times he would pick the salaries, ask the teachers to come and pick their money, and would go and sleep in the bush to be safe. So my very beautiful, happy childhood turned around. Actually, that is the word, was robbed in a blink of an eye. And so we're busy running up and down. Then at some point the camps were instituted, IDPs,
giving food,
which was not enough. And so it was not eventually from a happy childhood to something very sad, horrendous, I could say.
So how did you then manage to sit for P7?
P7.
Because that turmoil went in for a long time.
Yeah, it went for a long time. Yeah, it started in 1987. I remember CAM started returning in TESO in around 92 when I was in A3. So P7 was another story, very sad one, because when we were in P7, like I told you, we used to have those attacks. And on that one fateful, somehow, it looked like things were returning to normal. Our cows were taken. But we're lucky, as a family, there were four cows that were being milked and had to return because of their calves. They could not move their calves. Yes. So somehow, even when the Karmojong took the cows, the rest, these ones returned back home. And then we had some milk, and then two very difficult bulls, which I think also fought on their way and found themselves back home.
The bulls which used to lead the crowd,
they could not be taken. So there was a group of people who had intended to come, and now it was not Karmojong. I'm suspicious. They had come to pick those bulls, but the bulls fought them. But somehow they took off. And then we started that life of getting back to the bush again when I was in P7. And one time our dad was attacked, we were all home. But this time it was not the Karmojong, it was not the rebels, it was soldiers, because proof came around. We were attacked, my dad was beaten so badly to an extent that was in 89. We could not go to any hospital. It was very unsafe to move. I remember it was our late Bishop, Ilukor, who came around for pastoral ministry and found us gathered around a dying person who was badly beaten. And then he lifted our dad and took him to hospital. No, to Ongino Hospital in Kumi. But of course, there was nobody even to attend to him. He was just taken there, dumped, and then he managed to recover and came back. Now, when we were doing our P7, it was so sad. We had to keep going to the bush and back to the classroom during the day, and that kind of business.
I'm just picturing, how were you studying?
It was bad. Some teachers taught, but it was a bad situation because one time one of the priests was beheaded, and the body was brought to church. You know, it was not safe both day and night. You would not know who would attack any time. So like I told you, the priest was beheaded. One of the teachers, his father, was killed, gunned in the school compound. So it would be up to the teacher to choose whether to teach or not to teach. So that is how our P7 was. Well, we sat our exams. I got 16.
So and how were you able, like the day you sat, I'm just picturing,
yes,
when you're sitting for exams and you're in that, how did these people come all the way from Kampala with the papers and?
We don't know. I could say it was God's grace. And I remember at such a season like that, I think soldiers were dispatched to a number of schools to monitor the examination so that at least the rebels or the Karmojongs do not attack, and then they would take back the paper. So that is how we sat our P7. So you'd sit for the paper, and then in the evening you're running out of school for your dear life. And that is how we sat our P7.
Most of the people must have missed.
Yes, majority. We're only 36, and I was number 36. I remember my index number because of letter T. They would use alphabetical order, so I was number 36. In our year who sat P7, we had 3 people in Division 1, and a few of us in Division 2. Thank God I got a Division 2. Yeah.
But you were supposed to be a D1 person.
Super D1, not just, but a super D1. But you know that confusion, yeah.
So then after P7, where did you go to?
Okay, after P7, I was going to my dream school. I was admitted to Ngora High School. And on the day I was going to school with my dad to report to school, of course it was still bad. He had to get his bicycle. We didn't have this luxury of a box, and you know, even if a motorcycle, it would be luxury. You had to go on a bicycle. Your dad is there, and a little box, one bar of soap, and you didn't have nobody visit you. So on that day, my dad was taking me to school. Right 2-3 kilometers away from home, we get a roadblock of rebels. I could have actually been raped because that was the thing that was brewing. And my dad was supposed to have lost his life because at such a season like that, when they got a man, they suspected that probably you were spying for the soldiers. So when the rebels met one, they would think you are on a spy mission. But my father was busy explaining to them that, you know what, this is my daughter, I'm taking my daughter to school and whatever. Then the luck that we had is that one of his former pupils identified him. It is good to be a good teacher. It is very good. It is just that he was a good teacher to that pupil. Had he been a bad teacher, he would have lost his life that day, including me. And so it is that small boy who advised my father and told him, please, for the sake of your security, if you want life, go back home. Because there are many other roadblocks ahead of us, and I will not be there to protect you all the time. So go back home. So I didn't go to my dream school, the only boarding school in our district then. So I had to come back and begin studying in a neighboring day school, which was like 2 kilometers away from home. And I'd never walked distances because being that I was a teacher's child, it was always from home to the classroom. And you would find something to eat, a raw piece of cassava.
That's how we used to have friends who were
teachers' children.
When we were in primary,
yes.
I had to make sure I had a friend who was a daughter of a teacher, so that when you want something,
some favor,
boarding, they bring for you sweet potato,
those things. Yeah, so we had food, much as it was not so nutritious, but you had something to keep your stomach. Yes. But now I had to walk for the first time in my life, 2.5 kilometers to school and back home, and it was hard. And
in that situation,
there were no meals, and in that situation it was rough. I didn't enjoy any single day in my S1. Every day I had headache because of hunger. And then, of course, there was bullying in schools. And, you know, when you're an S1, it was not nice. So one time I went back home and told my father, you know what? If this is what school means, I'm giving up. If you want to study, you can go to school. You know, a child who talks carelessly. And I was beaten thoroughly, using a club, not a stick. It was like, how dare you speak to me like that? Who produced the who in this home? And he got a club and beat me until he got tired. But somehow, I think he reconsidered the matter, and we tried to rejoin my choice school, Ngora High School, and then I got admitted in second year, and I went to Ngora High School. Unfortunately, in the week I went, the school driver was killed in front of the common room, the school main hall. So we walk from the girls' wing going to the main school for classes, and we find the whole school covered with soldiers, with leaves on their hair. They are in operation. It is rebels who killed the school driver. Now the soldiers had come in to try to return sanity and to find out who did it. So everyone was a suspect. The teachers, the boys, you know. So
those days, boys of senior 3, senior 4 were big men.
They were big men, and of course some of them were accomplices to the rebels because they were their relatives. Some of the rebels, these were their children and whatever. So somehow we go to the school, and that was another shocker for me. I was like, I should have remained in the day school rather than, you know, you come from trouble, from fire to fire. And then life was not good. There was insufficient food. Anytime the school would be invaded by either soldiers or the rebels, sometimes the Kajongs, and would see our teachers being taken out of school. Yes, the teachers would be carried out of school. Our head teacher suffered. Every time he had to be taken to the detached to give explanations.
Was that
Mr. Lupot, Joash, our comrade, he really suffered for us, and he stood for us, because sometimes teachers would be picked from the school and they were called rebels. Sometimes it would be students. Then the head teacher had to go with the school identity cards to try to identify them and tell them, these are my teachers, these are my students, you know, that kind of life. So actually, I went into depression because there's no child who would thrive in such an environment. You are poverty, insecurity, lack of good food, so many things. So it wasn't nice. It wasn't nice. But still, by God's grace, there's what we call a remnant always in the Bible. The Lord helped us to survive. But many girls dropped out of school, pregnancy. Of course, HIV scourge was hot that time. And for me, these days when I speak to people, I tell them that, you know what, it's good to be ugly. I tell them it's good to be ugly because I was very ugly and no rebel would see me, no soldier would see me and take me out of school, you know. Yes, but I just keep telling them that, you know, God works out things in a certain way. So sometimes, yeah, they say beauty lies in the eyes beholder. Yes. So, yeah. So somehow some of us survived. But you would see sometimes soldiers come around the girls' wing and they're moving with girls for a whole weekend. Another time it is rebels. What would you do as a teacher? What would you do as a head teacher? The moment you'd try to prevent girls from being taken, you'd be labeled a rebel if it is the soldiers coming. If it is the rebels coming and you're stopping, they would say, you are a spy of the soldiers. Who are you? And so you would. There was no sanity. The beds were removed. We had no desks. We were seated on the ground. The blocks were there. The school blocks were there, but all the furniture was taken by the neighbors, by the communities. Some was used for cooking because now schools had also become kind of camps for the nearby communities. So some people who chose not to go to those internally displaced people's camps chose to stay in schools and churches. So they would just enter in the classrooms, pull out the furniture, chop and use for cooking within the school. So that was that. It was so terrible.
So then after you went through senior 4, how many were you? How was the experience after sitting senior 4?
Well, my S4, like I told you, when God has charted a path for you, He will always make things work out. So, like I've told you, we had water crisis. The students kept moving out of school to look for water. And they would interact with villagers who would want to sell their waraji. The students would take waraji as they want. They would take marua as they want. They would even bring it to the school, you know. And we survived. Now, in my S4, when we sat, we were only 13 in Division 1. The whole of that Ngora High School that you see, I think it was even the worst year, and I was the only girl in Division 1. Actually, in the whole of Teso, that season, in 1993, were less than 40 in Division 1. 93.
Epic of the rebels.
Yes.
I was still young, but I saw people moving into camps.
Yes. So, in the whole of Teso College, Ngora High School, Wiggins, Bukedieses, Madera, Kidetok were less than 40. Because I remember Madera girls had 2 girls only in Division 1. And myself from Ngora High School. So we're only 3 in the whole of Teso, not leave alone talking about a district in Division 1. And then we had those few boys in Division 1. So that was my O level.
So after senior 4, how was it like now? I wanted to know, because at school you were going through this, so during holidays, what would you be doing? Because now they were still insurgents. How would you even, do you remember any of, any time you think that memory, one of the memories you remember when you maybe went back home, anything that you can share with us here that was really terrible and you learned something from it? Well,
during holiday, it was another thing altogether. Sometimes school was better. Some of us dreaded, most students dreaded going home for holiday and would literally beg the HM to keep them at school because villages were not safe. Now for us, because we are also in our school, primary school though, I always found myself going for holiday You know, we had school trucks, and that would be our means of transport. The HM would always give in the truck for taking children to particular spots. He would take the Kumi group, then probably the Soroti group. That is the best he could do for us. Drop you in a town, and then you walk home. Yeah, yes, students and their head teacher, and he would have to move with us in the truck, taking us home. So what I would do, I was a herdswoman, by the way. We had to help our parents to keep those women. Being the firstborn of my mother, the boys were big. My stepbrothers were big and in secondary, and most of them also sometimes were reading. So it was us, the little girls, who found ourselves doing many of the chores at home. So we would look after the cows. They multiplied.
So
those
you know
four.
how to milk?
Yes, we tried. I know how to milk. Somehow plow, hold the plow. Our dad told us you have to train in everything. We would hold the plow and dig. We would milk and take the milk to the market. Particularly, I was a market girl. I would take the milk to the market. We would pick gobe leaves, chickpeas, the leaves, and I would take to the market to support the family, so that when you sold the milk, you would at least have some sugar. When you sold the milk, you would buy some soap to take back home. And this gobe, and we would pick in bags. They were not there. Yeah. It was a precious good. Yeah, so we would take to those restaurants in town. I would walk, move from door to door, sometimes pleading with people, and you find someone like, you have added a lot of water in the milk. I'm not paying you. And then you're there pleading with someone, kindly pay, because if I go back home, I will suffer. So those are the things we did. Somehow, my parents even engaged us in brewing alcohol, because life was bad. We dug. We did a lot of digging during holiday. Where was TV? Where was TV? I first saw TV when I visited my aunt in Makerere. Her husband was a lecturer. So most of the holidays that I spent at home were digging, were looking after cows, goats, sheep. You know, my parents were such enterprising people. They tried everything they could to ensure that they sustain us. And then little play. There was no time. The play you would have would be in the bush, running after cows, running after goats, and meeting other boys and girls in the bush, looking after cows. Sometimes you forget them. They go and eat people's crops. You get back home, you get thorough beatings. That was that. But eventually, my aunt, I've just hinted to you earlier on that I have an aunt, the bigger sister of my mom. Her husband was a lecturer in Makerere. She has a daughter my age who was in Gangeses. So every time after PS1, every holiday I spent with them in Makerere.
And so you would come?
I would come all the way. I would board those days, people's bus. My parents would escort me to the stage. And you remember, people's, you know.
Which could take the whole day
and there was no Tirinyi route. You'd go via Tororo, and then you find yourself in Kampala. And Kampala was good. You would find someone wheeling a wheelbarrow and would give you direction. There were no bicycles. There were no borders. The motorcycles then. So you would either have to foot or get a special hire. My auntie, taxis would be there occasion, but many times I also came with a lot of food from the village to support people here. So I had to carry a lot of kalo, a lot of millet, peanuts, sweet potatoes. So you'd come loaded. So they would always advise me that when you get to the park, get a special hire vehicle, we shall pay from Makere. So that is how I spent the rest of the holidays, and life changed. That means you were one of the lucky ones. Very lucky. Because to know Kampala. Yes. And my sisters and brothers would always admire me. For you are going to Kampala, and for us we are here suffering. And so that is that. So somehow my life changed more from my auntie's place, because I was now interacting with a more exposed child. Her daughter was in Gangeses in the same class. So most times I would take time copying her notes. Okay. Then I would take back those notes back to my colleagues at school and share with them that this is... You started having the idea of teaching. Yes. I would get back to them and say, this is what I got here. Anyone who wants, please, the notes are here. So that was that about my O-level. And
didn't boys
the timing-
disturb you then? Because,
Oh, they did, they did.
Because how was the experience? Because you know when you go primary, you're still little, you're still young, but now secondary with all the illiterates, because from what you've explained, looks like most of the people were actually illiterates during that time. So how did you maneuver around that?
The boys, like I've told you, I was a market girl. You'd meet so many on the road when you are going to the market, and someone extends the hand, you think it is an innocent greeting, and he scratches you. Well, our father had equipped us. It's good to be a teacher's child in a way. Our father had equipped us. He kept telling us how to build mechanisms, defense mechanisms around boys. He would even sometimes tell us, if they tell you they love you, tell them that you love them too. They will take off. No boy wants a daring girl. You know, I've just told you I love you, and you say I love you too immediately. They take off. So I used such mechanisms. Someone tells me I love you too. When you scratch my hand, I scratch you back and I move on. When you say I also say and I move on, carrying my gobe. So those disturbances were there, but somehow I found ways of maneuvering around them. Notwithstanding the fact that being an adolescent, somehow you fall into temptation also, but at least you had to keep safe. You had to keep safe, yeah.
So after senior 4 then, where did you go to?
I went back to Ngora High School. After S4, I had told my parents I wanted to be a priest. Even P7, I told them, you know, I want to go and be a lay reader. I don't want to stress a lot with studies. But my father was like, you, number one, you're just a woman. Have you seen any woman around here who is a church leader? Number two, we are teachers. And then for us, we allow our child to go and be a lay reader. In fact, we are poor. But you see the lay readers around us, they are worse in poverty. If we can put levels to poverty, ours is better poverty. So we can't allow you to go for such a cause. So after my S4, when I was pleading with them, I even liaised with the bishop, because the bishop was the late bishop was my father's classmate. So they were friends. Whenever he found himself in Kumi, he came home to say hello to his OB. So somehow I sneaked and told the bishop, you know what, I'm going to be a priest. But somehow, again, I had been involved in Sunday school teaching. Whenever our Sunday school teacher was not there, she would delegate me to do the work. So I had to go back to Ngora High School for my A-level, but CAM had returned. Somehow Sanity had returned. That was in 93, around May, and I sat my A-level in 96. Yes.
96, I think that situation had calmed down.
It had calmed down, yes. But you know, people were still getting to recover. Yes. They were in a state of recovery. There was no food from the villages and all that kind of business.
So that means 96 Sanity had returned in that district?
Yes, Sanity had returned. There were no more rebels. The NRA did their work. Those Kadogos did their work. They did everything it took to ensure that they wipe out the rebel group, the UPA, and then of course the Karamojongs no longer were coming to pick. There were no more cows.
They had taken everything.
They had taken almost everything. So,
very interesting story. Yes, you're still watching UBC TV, Inspiring Uganda, here on Super Soul Sisters. My name is Jamila Oluka. We'll be going for a break, but we shall be right back. Welcome back to UBC TV. My name is Jamila Oluka and you're watching Super Soul Sisters. Today on this show we have one of the ladies, again, who is very exceptional, who had beaten all odds to achieve what she wanted in life. Because when we are young, we usually have dreams that you want to be a doctor, you want to be a teacher, you want to be an engineer, you want to be a journalist. So most times people like go through a lot of changes, but later on, if you persevere, you get into where you want to be. But before we go into that, I would like to give gratitude to Footsteps Furniture here on Ginger Road, opposite Bank of Africa, where you can get all this beautiful furniture, all the lighting, all the curtains, televisions, like everything you need in a home, you can find here on Footsteps Furniture along Ginger Road. You can also check them out on their social medias. You can check them out on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, Still Footstep Furniture, and you'll get to pick what they want. But I would advise that you come to the showroom so that you get to see, because you know when you go where there is a pool of everything, you have variety and you have what to pick from. So we are here with Reverend Xavier Tino, a teacher by profession, a mother, everything you need to know about her. She has told us, but still we need to know where she is right now, what she is doing, how she finished her secondary school, how she managed to get her dream job that she wanted, all the things we are going to continue discussing with her. So Madam Xavier, our Reverend in the show today, you have told us about the insurgencies that you went through, how it was such a dark moment in your life, how it was so traumatizing, how you went through depression and you managed to come out of it because of your auntie who was bringing you to Kampala. Now, after you went back to Ngora High, you said that you initially, from childhood, you wanted to be a priest. So how did you maneuver around until you are now a priest? Because we see you are a priest.
Yes. You know, as children, you are always influenced by people around you. Your role models will be the people in your environment. So most of the people in my environment were teachers. My own parents were teachers, so I wanted to be a teacher. And then I was seeing the lay reader and the priest around. I said, oh, okay, that's another option to consider. Eventually, when the rebels and soldiers came, at one point I was even telling myself I'm going to become a rebel, you know, if not a soldier. Especially out of pain, when people would come and punish us, I would be like, I'm going to be a soldier one day, I'll pay back for the suffering that we're going through. I'll cane people thoroughly. And then on the other hand, I would be like, I'll be a rebel, at least I can get free chicken, free. So those were the things.
You can rob a few things.
I rob a few things and eat free of charge, although it is not anything admirable to be. So for me, my exposure, the people around me are the people who influenced me. So I saw the priest, I saw the teacher. Of course, those were meaningful professions. My father kept telling me, I'm seeing you an inspector of school, you know. For me as a teacher, my father kept telling us that for me as a teacher, the most my children can be, even if they become teachers, let them be secondary school teachers or anything above us, but not anything below us. And now for you, the way I see your character, you look like an inspector of schools. So
when parents can give us more.
I know, and you walk around and you feel like you're the inspector around.
Yes.
Yeah, so how I maneuvered to get there, well, after A-level, still I went back to my parents and told them, you know, these are my two things, either teacher or a priest. My father was like, no, you're going to be a teacher, at least a secondary school teacher. So, well, my A-level now, I didn't even put in a lot of energy. I was disappointed because I thought I had made the right choice. I wanted to be a priest, and here my parents telling me I am not fit to be a priest. So I didn't put in a lot of energy to studies. I would choose if I wanted to go to class or not. Like I told you, sanity was just trying to return, but still no teacher cared whether the child went to class or not, whether you attended preps or not. After all, we even didn't have power. People were using one pressure lamp in the girls' wing and one pressure lamp in the boys' wing. So if you wanted to read, you had to turn around and turn your book and try to pick something. So it was that bad. I got 3 principal passes. And I couldn't make it to the university. And those days, there was no private scholarship. Even if it was there, my parents wouldn't have afforded. So I was admitted to NTC in Kozi for diploma. Yes, for diploma in secondary education. I studied there, and for your own information, I was admitted for history Sierra A. But when I reached there and discovered that they wanted home economics teachers, and I had a background, they said anybody who has done any home economics, either in O-level or A-level, you are fit to teach foods and nutrition, home economics. So I registered. We were 8 initially, but when the Chambogo team came to do regularization, we remained only 2 in class. Only 2 of us qualified for the course, and I think it became very heavy for the college to manage just 2 people. So somehow we found ourselves in Chambogo By then, I take Institute of Teacher Education for our year 2, and I finished. I want to tell you, when God wants certain things for you, you'll get them.
Yes.
So the day I finished, well, okay, I did my school practice in Bombo. Year 1, year 2, Bombay says. And I saw the soldiers, how they would march, and what, okay, I found a way of telling my parents that now, all amongst my dream jobs, I've got a chance for another one. I'm going to be a soldier. Yes, because I was inspired by those soldiers. In
And they look so
smart. So smart, and they were looking disciplined. Yeah, my father was like, Bombo. He struggled himself and found ways. I didn't even finish the school practice well. In my final week, I was picked and whisked to Ngora High School. He negotiated with the head teacher then, and I was placed in Ngora High School. That is how I found myself a teacher. Luckily enough, there was no teacher for home economics. I just started teaching. And then when I did that, he said, between being a soldier and a priest, I would rather have you be a priest. But now that I have done my part, what I wanted of you, you have achieved it. If you really feel called of the Lord to be a priest, you are free to take over now. So that is how I reconnected with the bishop, with Archdeacon of Ngora then when I was teaching in Ngora High School. I told them, this is what I've always wanted. I wanted to be a priest. So I started the application process and came and did interview in 2000, yes. Unfortunately, I got a man and we had to get into issues of marriage and whatever. So I failed to come for my dream convocation.
Yes.
I stayed. Now, since I had hinted to the bishop, everybody knew the priest and whatever. So when I settled down with my man, the chaplain, Ngora High School, the one who became a bishop after Ilukore, Irigei, RIP, followed me up and said, for you had processed to be a priest. Now what are you doing here? Can you go and follow up this issue? Put things together, wed quickly and go. So we organized a wedding a quick wedding. I was actually doing my degree. By then I went back for my degree immediately. And then my husband announces to me one time that I'm going to wed you. I thought he was joking. I was like, what kind of wedding is it? I am at school, and what he said, everything is in order. I have cows. We have meat, enough meat. And at least we can dress ourselves. The rest of the things, even if we don't get rice and whatever, we have cassava and what we shall make a lot of kalo, I'm going to wed you. And so in less than 1 month, the wedding had taken place. Wow. And after I did that, finished my degree, I now followed up my dream and I went to UCU. I did a master's in divinity. And I was ordained as a priest.
That's a beautiful journey. It really takes... now, if you look at yourself now and that Savior who used to go to school, what message would you give people? That one who used to sit on a bicycle with a father, that one who used to walk 2 kilometers to go to school, what message would you give people? The
message is that we should never lose hope. In the midst of all troubles, never lose hope. Stick to God. God has charted all our pathways. God has charted all our pathways, and it's very important to be resilient, to be persevering amidst all turmoils. For us then, as young children, our problems are nearly a class apart of the problems of the current day for some children. Okay, well, some may be going what I went through, but when you look at the current world today, I would also maybe have a message. The insecurities to the young children of today. It may not be the rebels, it may not be the Karmojongs, it may not be hunger. They are these halves, the planned kids, who forget that they're in an unplanned world. They have their own insecurities, drugs, alcoholism, pornography, sexual misuse, and many other things, violence. So I would just want to tell the generation, my generation and the current generation, to be resilient and to have hope amidst all situations. That's very interesting, but I want to take you back. Like, maybe you can take us through, like, when you finally got your master's and then you went and did, they ordained you as a priest. What was the feeling like at home? It was good. It was very good. Unfortunately, my father was not there. I was emotionally beaten because I wanted to have him see me. The relations that were in church, people were happy. My head teacher was happy. He sponsored half of my party. My husband was so happy. We had all our children then. It was a very beautiful ceremony. And yes, having felt that I had got what I wanted. Because for me, I was like, I'm going to use my childhood experience to preach to others about God, the goodness of the Lord, that God that gives peace, that God, our God of hope, our God who is a God who preserves. So I was like, yes, I am there now. I can impact. Yes, I could impact as a teacher. I could counsel, but it narrows the scope. But when I stand in a pulpit, when I stand in an assembly of children, you know, my subject limits us, foods and nutrition, you usually have a few. But when I stand out as a priest in an assembly of young men and women, of people in churches, I feel elated.
Wow.
Yeah.
So now what do you, like now, where are you right now? Like where do you teach? Where do you preach from? Maybe you can tell us so that those people maybe who saw you before, who want to get to you, who want to see you, or who want to attend church and also get hope, maybe near you are, you can tell us so that people can know.
Okay. Currently, I'm a teacher in Gayaza High School. And so the chaplain of the school has co-opted me to work with her. So we do a lot of school ministry, but I generally do school ministry across. The people who have heard my story, the people who have felt inspired, have always called me to different schools. So I move in schools around Kampala. Sometimes I go to places like Jinja. I go to schools in Teso on invitation to speak about God, to encourage children to have hope, to be resilient, and to pray for peace. Because for us who came in places where there was no peace, it's very important to pray for peace.
Now you can move at the time you want.
Those
No
are the
one
things,
stops you.
except for these Mutalibwa people and the Taekwondo boys. But otherwise, we have relative peace. And yeah, so I do ministry in Church of Uganda. When I'm called on invitation, I go. But otherwise, I am a priest of Kumi Diocese. So, you know, church politics and,
You also minister around
when I'm home, when I go for long holidays and what, my colleagues call me and I do ministry. But otherwise, the moment I qualified, I worked as a chaplain in Ngora High School for a good number of years. Then I got transferred to teach in Igangeses, where I also worked with a school chaplain to impact on the lives of staff. And yes, now I'm in Gayaza.
It's been a very interesting story. I'm really very happy and humbled that you came to share with us that story. And I believe that people who are out there will know that you have to keep hope.
Yes.
Regardless of whatever situation you're in, you have to keep hope. Thank you very much, Reverend Xavier Tino, for sharing such a beautiful story. For me, I call it a beautiful story because a story which has a light at the end of the tunnel is a beautiful story.
Yeah.
As you said, that God has to make you go through certain
Storms.
hiccups, certain storms, so that you finally get a resting place. It is very nice to share this story. Some people maybe had a hint about what happened in Teso during that time, but probably they didn't know this other perspective, that actually children were affected, and you're one of them who thrived through all that. You managed to triumph and be here today. It's a very big achievement. Give glory to God. So for you who is watching, you've had a story from someone who had a dream and she achieved what she wanted. She is now a priest. I believe that even you, if you're planning, if you have a dream, please chase for it. You will get where you want to be. Everyone has a story, and the only thing you have to do is have hope. Take a message from the priest herself. She says hope. Where there is hope, there is life. Where there is hope, you can achieve anything. Where there is hope, you have something to look out for. But if you lose that hope, then that means you're letting your life die. So just have hope. There is no permanent situation in life. People go through hard times, but above all, you have to rise up and be where you want to be. With that information, I would like to give credit and a very good thank you to Footsteps Furniture for giving us such a beautiful place. And I would like to encourage all of you sisters who are there, brothers, people who are watching, to come and buy something from this showroom, because they have so much that you will take to your home, so many things that are beautiful. If you come here, trust me, you won't leave without buying a thing, because they have everything that you need in a home. And you know what? They have good parking. Also, they are very accessible. If you come to Ginger Road, you just make sure that you look opposite Bank of Africa. You will see Footsteps Furniture, and you come inside. It's a big showroom where you can get everything. Also, I want to remind you that UBC Super Soul Sisters airs every Wednesday, 9 p.m. on UBC TV, and I repeat at 11 a.m. on UBC TV still. And if you happen to miss, you know, now we're in a digital world, you can catch us on YouTube still, Super Soul Sisters. And trust me, on YouTube, you get all the episode. I also want to encourage you to subscribe. Please, if you watch, subscribe and leave a comment. What you want us to change, what you think can be done better, or what you liked most. Thank you very much. My name is Jamila Oluka. You have a blessed evening.